Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of A More Than Human Conversation. I am here with the hardest working man in Booktube. He's kind of like the Beastie Boys. He does this 8 days a week. Uh, he puts the Steve and Steve Talks books.
Thanks for the invite, Joseph. Appreciate it, and it's good to be here.
Yeah, I am. I'm super glad that you were able to jump on here with me, and it actually could have gone either way with you or Philip, because I think I think I asked you guys both at the same time, and because I wanted you guys to be the first two, because you were the first two guys who gave me a chance and let me jump on your guys' channels, and I'll forever be grateful for that.
No, Well, I think Philip might be my competition for. He's pretty busy too. So
He's trying, right?
yeah,
He's trying, but I was even telling him, I was like, you've been busy lately. You're trying to trying to catch Steve, aren't you? He goes, I don't think I'll ever catch Steve.
yeah. Things will calm down after House of the Dragon is over and some other things. So
Yeah, because God, like one of these, because I have like a rolling day off. When one of my days falls on that, because me and my wife were hardcore into House of Dragon.
mm.
Uh, so I mean, I think it's right back into the middle of Game of Thrones, where right in that sweet spot of everything's good. And I wasn't at first. I was kind of apprehensive, and it really had nothing to do with the last season of Game of Thrones.
Hmm.
It was more like I'm not super big into prequels, especially like prequels that we know what happened, kind of, because he's always alluded to the lore and this is what happened, and of course I didn't read the books, so that I'm not as in the know.
Yeah,
But like we went into it, and I'm like, halfway through episode one, I'm like, I'm back. You got
yeah,
me. You know.
yeah. Me too. I was a little apprehensive because of season 8. I thought, well, why are we going to revisit this? And I was still a little bitter. And then I saw like the set photos, and it just didn't look very good. So I thought, well, I'll watch it, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, within the first few minutes, it's like, okay, it's I'm in. But
Yeah.
I think it helps that it's like 170 years before
Yeah.
the events of Game of Thrones. So there's enough space in between that there's some things that could happen that it wasn't like a couple of years before. It was a lot of there's a lot of time, a lot of history, a lot of lore to explore. So I'm usually not into prequels either, but there's enough time to where it's like, okay, I'm interested. Let's see how this kind of all came to be.
Yeah, I had initially thought, I don't know, maybe because I know they're planning multiple like
Mm.
Game of Thrones spinoffs. I thought that this was like 1,000 years before or
Oh,
something, initially, and then they're like, oh, 172 years before, and I'm like, okay, all right, so this isn't like out of the realm, like we're so far back, it's ancient history, it's um,
yeah, they weren't cavemen in Westeros yet. It's past that. Yeah.
yeah, but well, and I was kind of thrown off a little bit though in the first episode, like the first dragon they showed. I was thinking to myself, I was like, they didn't put as much money into this as they did at the end, because like that first dragon wasn't quite as good. But I don't know if like they just had to get that first episode out, because I feel like the dragons actually looked better the
Mm.
further we've got into the season.
Yeah, in the first episode, there was like a couple of like cities and some other things that looked. It didn't look like it was very polished. I mean, it would look good, but we're picky, so we
Yeah,
like to nitpick. But
yeah,
yeah, I think I wonder if they were kind of just testing the waters to see how it went and just to see what the reaction would be. I wonder what different choices they would have made now, knowing how popular it is, if they would have done things differently, knowing that it's taken off.
yeah. Well, I definitely think that's the case, and with you have I always it's always a weird thing to see with a lot of these shows, especially the adaptations, is that the first year, or the first season, there's always things to nitpick and you can tell, for at least for the most part, they didn't put a ton of money into it. Like if you look at The Witcher, you're like, okay, they gave Henry Cavill all the money, and and they had a couple decent CGI things, but like the costumes weren't really all that great and stuff. But the story was good enough and the acting was good enough that they're like, okay. And then you look at the second season, you're like, okay, here comes the money,
Yeah.
And I think that's how most of the production companies are. They're like, all right, we'll give this book series one season, see if we can make money on it, and then we'll start unloading the bank on it.
Yeah, they probably just see how it goes, and they don't want to invest too much up front. Because you look at Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, they invested a lot up front. So I wonder if they would have made those same decisions, knowing what they know now. But yeah, I think the whole industry is risk averse, and they are afraid to take too many chances. But once the series takes off, like The Witcher or House of the Dragon, then they're like, okay, back the money truck up, and let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I expect next season to be ridiculous. I mean, they're probably just going to go all out, everything they can do.
Yeah.
But I mean, have you watched any of the Rings of Power?
I haven't. I have no interest in it. Not because of any other. I don't have. Well, first, I don't have like the time to watch it, and I'm just not a big Lord of the Rings guy. It doesn't really interest me too much. I mean, it's fine, but I'm not a Lord of the Rings fanatic or anything. So maybe one day, but
yeah, I've always said, like, I've never read the books, and I was like, on Booktube, that's like blasphemy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm outing myself. I think next year that I'm gonna try to do at least The Hobbit, and we'll see. We'll go from there. But I love the movies. I mean, that was like right in my childhood wheelhouses when they came out. I was like, I don't know what it was, like 12, 13.
2001.
One,
Right?
yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it would have been like 13, 14 when they came out. So, seen them all in theaters, opening weekend, all that, all that crazy stuff. And they were great. I watched the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power, and it just, you could tell that it was the most expensive show ever made, because like the visuals, I mean, as good as any show I've ever seen. But just some of the acting and stuff, it's like I almost feel like they went the opposite way.
Yeah.
Instead of like dumping all your money on the actors in the first season, they're like, all right, we're gonna make this the craziest looking show ever. And it was just okay. I'm not like some of these people who are like, that's the worst show I've ever seen. Tolkien would be rolling in his grave. I'm not like that or anything. But
yeah, I think, and this, we're so picky, right? But I think that the trailers and stuff that I've seen, it looks almost too polished. It looks too shiny. It almost looks like a video game sometimes, and I don't know, it just doesn't appeal too much to me. But I think they should have spent that money on creatives and other things, and not so much on the special effects, because you can get creative with special effects, and but we'll see how it works out for them. If it doesn't work out very well, then Amazon might be in some trouble with their streaming service. According to them, their future depends on that show's success. So
yeah, I mean, I want to. What they almost spent like $1 billion in total, like buying the rights, and then somebody said it's like 200 and some odd million just in the first season. I'm just like, these are like, I mean, this is like Marvel, like, end game numbers that were thrown out here to make the first season of this show. And I'm just, it's like I want it to work, because I want more adaptations. I want all the books. I want all everything.
I think that's what some people forget, because if somebody enjoys it, even if I don't enjoy something, it's like I hope they enjoy it, and I hope it does well, and I hope that there's more adaptations, because it benefits all of us if a show is successful, because when we get more shows, we get more adaptations. So this whole thing about it shouldn't exist because I don't like it, that's let people who enjoy it, and maybe we'll get more, and you'll have an adaptation you enjoy. But Yeah, the whole the fandom is interesting. It's interesting, those fandoms, but yeah, and I think too. I think they were kind of in a weird position because they didn't really have a story to tell. They just had bits and pieces, so they had to fill in a lot of blanks and make it work. So I'm sure that wasn't easy either, to take all these little pieces here and there and then make a cohesive story with it. And then there's things they couldn't do because they don't have the rights to it. So they already had one hand tied behind their back, trying to make it work.
Yeah, well, that's what I heard after I watched the first episode. Is I went online and people were said they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion,
Yeah.
and I'm like, how are you making a prequel if you don't have? So they're just using like the cliff notes from the back of all the books, and like you said, like so you're just trying to piece together, a story, and you have these characters that are parts of these grander stories that you're just trying to throw in, and you have to make up stuff. And like, of course, you're going to make fans mad because they're like, well, how do you know that that's what they would have done? It's like, look at Summerlin. Like, we don't have the rights. We can't
Yeah.
touch it. But I'm like, you spent $1 billion and you don't have the rights to the Summerillion. I'm like, that was the biggest flaw in my mind. I'm just like, it's just like it's like you bought the rights to the author notes to, like, I don't know, like a Joe Abercrombie book. You're like, no, it's just the notes he scribbled down. You don't actually have the rights to the book, and it's like, of course, it's not going to come out right.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm sure it's a tough thing to do, to adapt bits and pieces of a story, but you wonder. And on one hand, I get that they're taking a shot and they're swinging for the fences and saying, let's do a Lord of the Rings show and it'll be great.
Yeah,
So I get that, but they could have invested some money, much less money, into another series and adapted something else and had something that would be their own, that they would have. But I get that they want something that they felt like was a sure thing and not something that they had to take a chance on. So, well,
yeah,
but never either way, I hope it does well. I hope they decide to spend more money and make more adaptations.
yeah, yeah. And so back all over here on BookTube. Actually, this is kind of going to be my opening question to all these. Like, what got you? Like, who got you into reading? Like, where did you start? Like, you know,
I used to read a lot of comic books for years and years. I read a lot of indie comics, and I kind of felt like I wanted to get away from technology a little bit and not be on my, not be in front of a screen, because we're in front of screens, sometimes at work or with our phones. It seems like we just like can't get away from it. So I started looking into Kindles. We were going to buy Kindles for each other for Christmas. Our family was, and then I found Mike's book reviews. I was like, I didn't even know this existed. I didn't know that what is, BookTube, what is that? So then I found Mark from Slowly Read, and I always pictured fantasy as, like the traditional, Fabio looking guy on the front cover. I didn't know that there was, dark fantasy and grimdark and all these other subgenres. I didn't know that these things existed. I had no idea. So that's kind of what opened my eyes to the possibilities, and here we are.
so what was the first fantasy book that you can remember reading and actually like comprehending as a,
The
like a child?
Well, I actually didn't read a lot of fantasy when I was younger. I didn't. My first fantasy book was a couple of years ago, and that was
Oh,
Priest of Bones was my first fantasy book. I usually read horror or like nonfiction or other things like that. But my first fantasy book wasn't until a couple of years ago, and that was because I saw it on Mark's channel, on Slowly Read's channel. So that was my introduction to fantasy, and maybe that explains a bit about my reading habits now, because I tend to go towards the darker stories, and I've just always preferred the darker stuff.
so were you more? I mean, because that's what I always tell people is like, I mean, we had to read stuff in school, and I sporadically, read different things, but I was more of a movie guy, a TV show guy. I
Mm.
mean, I stayed home while everyone went out and partied, or I went to the movie theater. That was my weekend stuff. Were you? Is that kind of what you did when you were younger? Were you more into like TV shows and movies? And I know you said comics, right?
Yeah, I was really big into movies. I love movies. I think that too played up because I like darker movies too. So I think just the stuff I prefer. But yeah, I love movies, and I don't get to watch a whole lot of them anymore because I'm spending more time reading. So, but yeah, it's not as you don't get as many movies in anymore. But yeah, I love movies and music. But TV is kind of it. TV wasn't really a thing for me until the mid 2000s when all these really great
Yeah.
shows were being made. So that's kind of when it changed a lot for TV.
Yeah, I think, and that's weird. It's weird to think, and especially like if you get like younger people, maybe early 20s, and they've all grown up with amazing TV shows everywhere almost every station. Even the major stations do these longer arcs now.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I for sure there were shows before this, but like the first real show where I'm like I was into the whole arc and it was amazing was oh my gosh, I just lost it. Walter White,
Oh, Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad. That was one of the very first shows where I was like I was locked in. Like the whole like it was like, all right, this is the time. We're not doing anything else when the show's on. Um, we had like I think Supernatural might have been before that a little bit. So there was that, but Supernatural, even though it had an arc, it was still very much a monster of the week,
Mm.
show up until you got into a couple seasons in. But
Hmm.
you
I
know,
haven't seen Supernatural. Is it pretty good? Does it hold up?
yeah, the first, honestly, I would say if they would have now they got better. It had some good and bad seasons after this too, so there was some good stuff. But if they would have stopped at like season 5, it would have been one of the greatest shows ever made.
Mm.
Because the original writer of the show left after season 5.
Oh.
Yeah, I want to say it's Eric Kripke. He's actually the guy who writes The Boys.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I thought that name sounded familiar. Yeah.
yeah, he's done a couple other like anything he touches is gold. But the funny thing is like he's actually from Ohio too. So he would throw in little quips and stuff and like anytime the guys from Supernatural were going back to Ohio, you knew something bad was gonna happen. And it's like because it would always be like, oh, this is where they're at. In the show, it would be like, oh, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. And then you see something crazy happen, and then the Winchesters have to show up and try to stop whatever boogeyman monster. But it's like, oh, we're in Toledo, and you're like, okay, about to hit the fan, because. But yes, Supernatural is really good. So it's like they did like a 5-season arc, and then and then they were supposed to end it on season 10. They did another 5-season arc, and
Wow.
then I want to say they went to like 13, 14 seasons, something like that.
Wow.
So I think because it's like the CW, WB or whatever, and I think there towards the end they just wanted to kind of keep soaking it up because people were still watching it, so they're like, all right, it's our most popular show. Let's keep this money train going for as long as we can keep it going.
Wow.
Which I actually applaud shows where they're like, yeah, we're gonna end it right here. We're gonna like we have a plan. Like I guess Breaking Bad was always going to end it where they ended it, and everyone wants I guess they got spinoffs, right? They got Better Call Saul out of it, which I know you love, right?
I did, yeah, and I think it was really close to being better than Breaking Bad. I think Breaking Bad just because the finale, I prefer the finale of Breaking Bad a little bit more than Better Call Saul.
Yeah, I think we made it through the first season and loved it. It's just I don't know. Was there a big break between season 1 and season 2, or was it? Or I feel like one of the seasons, maybe it was season 2 to 3 or something, had like a longer break or something happened.
It might have been because of COVID. I think maybe that's maybe what might have happened. I remember there's one break that was longer than normal. Yeah, so it might have been a
Yeah, I
break.
think. Yeah, me and my wife will probably end up coming back and and rewatching the whole thing because we really liked it. It's just something happened, and then we had all these other shows. Um, you that's kind of how it always ends up. And we just finished The Sandman on
Oh,
Netflix.
how'd you like that?
Really good, a lot better than I anticipated it being. you know, sometimes, Netflix is hit or miss. They're just like, they just kind of throw, stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But yeah, it was really good. And from what I hear, it was like pretty faithful to Neil Gaiman's books and everything, which, I guess we can, all applaud on that. Because I was asking my friend who's read all the comics, I'm like, is that really how it went? He's like, yeah, that's exactly, he's like, it's crazy, right? But that's exactly how they made it out to be.
I always get nervous with Netflix because they cancel things so quick. Because they cancel stuff if it doesn't boost their subscription count. They're ruthless. They cancel it right away. So I'm always nervous to get invested and then it gets canceled. But they haven't
Yeah,
announced season 2 yet. Of
yeah, yeah. So, well, and it's so weird because they they're like that, right? So they'll, if it doesn't hit certain markers, they'll just bury it. But then also they're like, on the other hand, they've been like the savior of some shows
yeah,
where they're like, oh, Lucifer, oh, you're going to cancel, we'll buy the rights and we'll put it up and we'll finish it off. And then there's been like several other shows like that. And but you're like, okay, well, that's great that you're pulling up these shows that already have an audience, but then you're like, you got these shows that are really great and you don't give it time to kind of build.
yeah. It's really sad. I think I guess from a business standpoint, it probably helps that there's a built-in fan base already. Because then you might get people that aren't subscribed to come over and subscribe to finish off the series. But yeah, it's really, there's even been a couple of shows that did really good and then they got canceled like a week or two later. Even when they were still like number one on the service, they were, I forget, it was Mike, was it Mark Millar? It was a comic book adaptation. I forget the name of it, but it was about a year ago. It was number one on all the lists, but they still canceled it because it didn't do what they wanted. They didn't hit certain criteria. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And that'll be crazy because like now they, I mean, if it's accurate, I mean, they could do whatever they want to do, but you see the list of like, oh, the number one on Netflix, number one movie, number one show. Yeah, and it's going to be weird that people will be looking at those, and then it's like, oh yeah, this one didn't get re-upped, and you're like, how are you not re-upping the show that was like number one for like 8 weeks?
yeah,
Like you guys, you're not making any sense here.
yeah. You'd figure it would be if there's a show that like that's number one that's really gaining steam. You'd figure if you invest in a season 2 or season 3, then you might have people curious about it after time. Everyone's talking about this, so I should go watch it. So but I don't know. It's the Netflix is really weird. They don't they don't like to take too many chances on things. So like Ozark, I'm surprised that made it as long as it did. These shows get canceled pretty early.
Yeah, I've heard that like at least the first couple seasons of Ozark is like top notch.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a. It's just not really bad. I kind of felt like it was like a poor man's Breaking Bad. It was there were some elements from it that were, I don't, and not in a bad way, that taking it they were taking it and copying it, but I think Ozark lacked that nuance that Breaking Bad had. Because Breaking Bad, there's lots of air and there's lots of room to breathe in the episodes, and everything moved really slowly, and there was there's little details that you can pick out. But with Ozark, it moved a little bit too fast. It didn't give it the story time to build and to breathe. Because in Breaking Bad, we spent, I don't know, the first 3 or 4 episodes kind of just getting to know everyone and kind of
Yeah,
building. And in Ozark, it's like half an episode and you're in the mix. You're in it right off the bat. So, but maybe the Netflix thing, contributed to that, because they were afraid if they don't get to the point right away, if they don't grab people with this is the problem and these are the stakes, maybe they're afraid they won't get to stick around. So there's that balance, I guess, you have to play when you're creative.
yeah. I think again, like in Breaking Bad, Walter White was such a well realized character. I mean, we knew exactly why he was doing what he was doing. We knew almost like once you got into the mid seasons, like you knew how when something happened, we knew how he was going to react because he was so flushed out, you know. where like, oh, like you just, like whenever they would cut away and it wasn't him, it was something else happening. You're like, oh crap, Walt's going to end up doing this. And then even though we kind of knew what he was going to do, they always came up with a crazy way of having him do it that surprised you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And they, like you said, we knew the characters, but they always found a way to surprise us. Even they always had a little bit of a twist, not too much, just enough that it's like, okay, that could happen, or that, that would be my luck kind of thing.
Yeah, that I loved how like MythBusters did 2 episodes of Breaking Bad, like in different seasons, because there were so many things where like that could happen, and then the MythBusters are like, can we make it happen? Like the whole like the giant magnet thing where in the evidence room and stuff like that. I mean, some of that stuff was like ridiculous, like the little crystal that exploded. That's one of my favorite scenes in the entire show. Because you're like, is that real?
Yeah. There's some great scenes in that. In that series. There's so many great moments in it, but you having those quieter moments and those moments that you build and you get to know the characters and I don't want to say the slower moments, but the moments that kind of drug. Because of those moments, you get to learn. You get to know the characters a lot better than it just being, at 5 times speed and you're, heading headfirst into it.
Yeah, it's not, and that's a perfect, show where it's like there's not a ton of action. When there is action, they do it really well, but it's like there's so much buildup and learning and anticipation, and everything makes sense when the big action scenes happen.
Yeah, they're great at action scenes because of that buildup. Because they build that tension, and then when it happens, it's satisfying. It's not just people getting shot in the face every 5 minutes. It's not like it's you can feel it coming. So when the time, and it's always the minute or two right before an action scene that they have a way of just ramping up that tension even more. And I'm not sure how they do it, but man, there's so many great writers on that show that it's amazing what they were able to do with it.
So I know you're like one of like the horror guys, you like the darker side of things. And I know you said were you into horror novels before fantasy? I mean, was that something that you started with?
Every once in a while, I would read a horror book. Not too often. I would try and read it about 15 times before I never finished it. But I read a lot of horror comics, and I love horror movies. So that's kind of transferred over.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is like, was the genesis? Were you one of those kids that was always watching the slashers and stuff like that?
I'm not into. It's weird. I should be into slashers because they were the thing when I was growing up, and everything was slashers. But I'm not really into slashers too much. I don't know. The one person doing all this crazy stuff and killing so many people, it just seemed kind of cheesy to me. It just doesn't interest me. I know a lot of people love them. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you had a couple of the slashers where you could be like, okay, that's a genuine good movie, but most of them were just like, all right, we're just here to see people get messed up. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I think with those movies you have to find creative ways to kill people. So I think part of it, like you said, was I just want to see people, not having too good of a time. And I think that probably that kind of goal of ramping up the stakes led to stuff like Hostel or those movies in the early mid 2000s that were just kind of over the top, because you had to reach a certain point. It's like, okay, how can I top that? And then you keep going up and up.
Yeah, I think, and at least for me, like you said, they kind of ramped up. I think Hostel was probably the pinnacle of what's the craziest we could do. Whereas right before that, you had the original Saw movie, which I thought like was amazing. Like it, like if anybody was like, I called it, I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't believe, because like we were sitting in the theater, and when he gets up out of the pile, like out of the blood, I'm like, we're all looking at each other like, what is going on here? What are we doing? Like, but like I just love, that's one of my top, like, not just horror movies, that's one of my top movies all time.
Yeah, and it's what makes it also impressive is I think they made it with like a shoestring budget with,
Yeah, like $2 million or something like that.
yeah, and it's such a great movie. And the second Saw, I think, doesn't get enough credit. I think the second one is pretty
Yeah.
good too.
It's weird. There, yeah, you had a couple there in the middle. Like this, the first and second one was good. The third one I thought was pretty bad, and then the fourth one came back, and then the rest of them I thought they were okay, but I think it got a reputation of, okay, we just need to come up with crazy machines to kill people. You know, it got to that slasher point as they got into like 5, 6, whatever. You know,
Yeah, I
you
think
know,
that's a series that would have benefited being like a trilogy or something with a
yeah,
short, because there's only so many ways you can kill people.
yeah. I think
Especially after the first movie, it's hard to top it.
Yeah, I think Nightmare on Elm Street was that way too. Because the first Nightmare on Elm Street was awesome. I mean, like the writing was good. I mean, they had good actors and everything, and the premise was really different. You know, you're just like, what? And then and then they just went off the rails. You know, after the first couple, and they're just like, all right, we just got to come up with the craziest ways that Freddy can just get to people and dreams, and you know. I think that was one of the first franchises that went meta,
Hmm.
where it was like it was like the sixth or seventh one where it was they were in the real world shooting a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and then the movie, then he came to
Oh,
life or whatever. I was like, geez,
that's right. I wonder who, if they were the first ones to do that, like on like a movie of that, like a franchise of that size, if they were the first to do something like that, like go meta.
yeah, yeah, that it was interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say that was a great movie, but it was like, I'm like, really? Is this where we're going now? But of course, I mean, I'm sure back in, I would say that Deadpool was probably
Hmm.
around, because he came around what, like 93 or something like that.
Yeah, or I think early mid '90s probably.
So I mean, he might have been, because I assume that was a mid to late 90s, like one of the last hurrahs for the Nightmare on Elm Street. But you know, I'd never heard of like going meta before that.
Hmm.
But now that's everywhere. The Office, everybody does it.
Yeah. I think when it's done right, it's just like anything. It's when it's done right, it's good. But it's tough to pull off.
Yeah, like um and I know I've probably asked you this before, but what kind of made you want to like dive into indie publishing books? Like, was there a pull? Was there a certain person that you knew?
Hmm.
Like,
I think before, when I read comics, I read a lot of indie comics, and I always loved that some of them are off the rails or just like stuff you would never read in a Marvel or DC book because they just wouldn't take those chances. They wouldn't. They have a certain formula that they use, and they want, there's really no stakes because they're invested in these characters. So when I started reading more novels, I kind of just that's kind of where I felt most comfortable, and I would see a lot of people talking about the same books, um, which is fine. I mean, not a criticism, but I wanted to I wanted to find something new and different, and I wanted to find these crazy stories that you know I wanted to have what the creator wanted it to be, not what it would after 15 editors and some press person making more changes and watering it down. So I wanted it fresh from the creator, and whether I enjoyed it or not, at least I knew that that's what they wanted to create. So I respect that. I mean, to put yourself out there like that, I wanted to have that the story right from them, not through 15 other people making decisions for them.
yeah, I mean, and I know you. I mean, obviously, you've done big books before, and
Mm.
from well established authors and stuff. Uh, do you find yourself fighting that urge to follow the crowd and like, oh well, everybody's doing this book, so I gotta do this book too, you know?
Not really. There's times when I do. There's certain times, there's certain books like a new release, and it's like, oh, I should read that or I should get on that. And but I just have so many books already that I want to read that it's like it's hard to find the time. And I mean, I think we all kind of wonder that that's to some extent. Like, should I be reading that because everyone else is too, or everyone's talking about this? I should check it out. But I just have so many things I already want to read, or I'll see you know another book coming out, or I'll see another author that I've read before, and they have a new book, and it's like it goes up the list. So it's just hard. There's only so much time in the day, so you have to choose carefully. But I think I guess to answer in regards to your question, I think we all think about it, but it doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah, I mean, and I try to do, the same as much as I can. It's like I actually do like I'll do like deep dives into like, what are the, I'll look for those lists where it's like, oh, best unknown dark
Yeah.
fantasy books, or, you know, grim dark authors that don't get enough shine and stuff like that. And, and I'll look, I'll like kind of look over and do samples of the books, and I try to find, different things. But, there are certain things like with like, you know, I try to do some Stephen King and
Mm.
stuff like that. And I'm actually, when you basically were like, I'm done with the Dark Tower, I'm bowing out. I was like, even though I liked it, I was like, I respect it. I respect the decision. It's like, because some people, you know, I found myself doing this not just in books, but just in stuff in general. It's like, I'm a glutton for punishment. I'll just stay and take the hits. Just like even when it's not like my favorite thing, but I just love it. You're just like, yeah, I'm stopping right here, guys. I'm just no, can't do it anymore.
If the books were 300 pages instead of 900 pages, then it may have been, I might have made a bit different decision.
Yeah, you know what? And I loved your video you just did. You did a couple days ago about trying not to be burnt out and reading slumps and stuff like that. And I like every point that you made,
Hmm.
I agreed with. I was like, I think like everybody everybody needs to that reads a lot or wants to do a booktube channel should watch that video.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of us get caught up in trying to keep up with everyone else, like as far as like page counts and books, and but it's okay to slow down and to not feel like you have to keep up, and just if you don't feel like reading, then don't read. I think it's just, but I think we get into this mode of trying to have certain goals, or you have to have this done by a certain time, but it's okay to about like to not read the Dark Tower. Um, that was tough, but I just wasn't enjoying it, and I'm just not a big Stephen King fan. I know that I can appreciate his writing and everything, and I get why people enjoy it. And I'm happy that people enjoy it, but it's just not for me. It's not what I enjoy.
Yeah, and I mean, I can completely see, and not every book that I've read from him has hit for me. Um, and and I had talked with Philip, and I mean, we've talked about it inside of the couple Dark Towers that you were on there. It's like sometimes he will like ruin his own endings or tell you where things are gonna go. And that's one thing. I mean, he's a great writer, and like Philip's like, well, it's probably just he's like, I'll show you that I can make you care. And Stephen King's already said, like, he goes, it's about the journey, and I'm like, yeah, but don't ruin the ending for me, please. Like, the journey would be so much more fulfilling if I didn't know where I was going.
Yeah, yeah. I think I know some people don't mind spoilers, and I think they enjoy the story more when they have a spoiler, when they know how it ends. But I'm not like that at all either. I don't want to know. I don't want it telegraphed. I don't want to know 10 pages before someone dies. Once in a while, it's okay. Once in a while, it's all right. But when it's every death, it's like this is the last time she saw Michael alive, and then it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's the worst. Like, and it's not just him. Like a lot of people will do that. That's like That is like a thing. That's a setup. Like, this is the last time they would ever see each other. And I'm like, like, come on, man. Now, well, like 100 pages later, I'm just like, okay, well, obviously this isn't going to happen because we're never going to see him again, so he's not going that path.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. When it's too when it's vague and there's like, you know, some room. It's like this is the last time she saw him like this, or the last time, you know, I don't know, a certain circumstance. But when it's just like this is the last time he was alive, or she saw him alive, or it's like, you know, once in a while it's all right, but not every time.
You know, I just finished Richard Kadri's the Grand Dark, and he does it right. Like, he was like, you know, he'll go off on these little, you know, these side things with characters, and then he'll get to the point, and he'll say something, like he'll be like, he's building you up to, you know, you're getting close to the end of whatever this is going to be, and then he'll be like, he goes, this could, you know, it'll be like, oh, this could happen, but that was the last time. And then he tells you, and then he's like, because I found him dead as I walked in the door. Like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, you can do that because we know we're at the end of it, and you're showing us right afterwards, rather than just like, and then I got to go 50 pages to figure out how he died. I know he's dead. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It kills the suspense. Yeah, but when it's right before, then it's like, okay. But yeah, when it's 50 pages, it's like, kind of a letdown.
I mean, I can imagine, you know, do you have to go, like, especially if it's a more popular book, do you really have to go out of your way to stay away from like YouTube and stuff like that? Because I know you don't like hardly knowing anything about books. I know, like, I'll watch your reviews and you're just like, you're coming in, you're like, I'm not going to give you a whole lot because I don't like having hardly anything.
Yeah, I try and avoid reviews because some reviews say, you know, spoiler free, and then it's like, okay, it's safe, and then they just kind of tell you the story's about these two characters, and this happens, and that happens, and then this happens, and then they go here, and it's like, I don't want to know any of this stuff, so I don't need to read the book now. But so I try and avoid most reviews unless it's from someone I really trust, or most of what I decide to read is just I'll hear a little bit about it, or like someone that I really knows my reading taste will say, I think you'll really like this. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll try it. But that's where I get most of them from. Or just a quick, even the synopsis sometimes I feel like ruins things for me. So I'm real weird.
It's like movie trailers now, where it's like, you just gave away 80% of the movie, or you gave away most of the book.
Yeah, movie trailers I avoid too, because they just give so much of the story away, and then when you're watching the movie, you're waiting for that moment in the trailer to happen. So it just kind of kills some of the suspense for me.
Yeah, well, and that was kind of, I was thinking about that when I I wrote my synopsis for the back of my second book. I was just like, you know, most people are like, oh, that's a good, you know, it sounds really good, but in my back of my mind, I'm like, well, from the front of the book, you should probably grasp, you know, it's a fantasy book, it's in the fantasy section and everything, but I don't give away a lot on the back of the book.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just like, well, you know, and then now, like we're saying, like nowadays, a lot of stuff is just given away. So I'm just like, well, I hope people, you know, that intrigues people enough. You know, I mean, I guess on Amazon you can read like the first, you know, 2 chapters or something like that without, you know, because I was like, well, I don't want to give much away. You know, like kind of, you know, she's going after somebody, and that's, you know, but I don't want to give away what type of characters are going to show up and stuff. I mean, it is like the Wild West, and I've, you know, told people that there's a lot of tall tales in there, but you know, so.
Yeah, it's gotta be tough, and I think some people don't mind spoilers. Some people don't mind knowing how a book ends or what it's about, or knowing all the story beats. They still enjoy it, and I think, you know, we all absorb stories differently. But yeah, I try and avoid most anything.
Yeah. So what, like, I guess, what makes a book, like, when someone who knows your taste or whatever, or just yourself, if you were to just put it out and be like, these are the things I'm looking for, give me a book recommendation. Like, what makes a book great? Like what's your favorite book? Like,
My favorite book. That's tough. It changes all the time. My favorite book. That's tough.
you're like,
Tough
so
one. That's a tough one. There's so many of them that I really enjoy, and it might change every day. But the first one that came to my mind is, is either Kings of Ash or The Darkness That Comes Before is probably my two. But I really love Nocturne too. So I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough question. Putting me on the spot here, Joseph.
yeah, I mean, we ask the tough questions here.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, it's probably Kings of Ash just because of what it did for a second book.
So what are like I don't want to say necessarily say tropes, but like what makes a book, special for you? Where you're just like, that's definitely up my alley, and that's what's gonna.
Good morning, Chaz. For me, I like being challenged. I like stories going places that I wouldn't expect. I like surprises, and I like not knowing what's going to happen. I like knowing that there could be a death, or there could be a major event that I don't see coming. I like when an author will take a chance and kill their darlings, or just go off the rails and do something crazy. That's kind of what I look for, something a little different, and not playing it too safe. I like, and sometimes that's okay, like a comfort read, that's okay, but I like things that kind of go off the rails and do things I wouldn't expect them to do, or to make me think after. When I think about a book after I finish it, that's when it's like, okay, that was really good. And not every book is like that. Sometimes you can enjoy a book and you close it and it's like, oh, that was good, and then you're done, and that's okay too. But the ones that really stay in my mind are the ones that I think about after.
Yeah, and I know you did a video about like the definition of grimdark, because everyone seems to have their own definition. Like, it's weird. Like, there's a lot of people will be able to tell you, oh, like, okay, this is definitely steampunk. This is definitely flintlock. This is, this is definitely in the realm of dark fantasy. Although dark fantasy has its own like little umbrella, but it seems like nobody wants to agree on what grimdark is. And I know you were talking about, grimdark being things have consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what makes? It seems like that's what makes books for you.
Yeah, consequences is big, and yeah, that's one of the main things I think separates grimdark from just other types of fantasy is consequences. So when you know that choices are made, that whatever happens because of those choices will matter, whether it's good or it's bad, and it's not always going to work out the way the characters plan or the way we plan as a reader. That's probably the main thing that I would say is grimdark is consequences and being a little bit unpredictable.
Yeah, I mean, I just for me, like, that will almost kill my enjoyment. Like, I like you, like, I don't mind, like, I'll pop in, a book that's, kind of light and just good-hearted and everything, but especially if it's going to be a series, like, if something happens in that first book, it's got to have consequences going forward, or why did you do it?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I mean, maybe I'm bad about that, because there's certain things that I don't do. Like, when I'm reading a book, I don't try to figure stuff out. I'm not
surprised. Yeah, as a movie guy, I'm surprised that you don't try to predict it, or you don't like try and see it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like, and I know Mike from Mike's Book Reviews has talked about this too. Like, he's like, where he'll say stuff like, oh, guys, like, you guys get mad at me because I didn't call it. Like, he goes, I'm not looking at that. Like, I'm just trying to be in the zone. And that's kind of how I am too, for the most part. It's like, I just try to live in it, and that's why I hate, like, don't want to go off on a tangent, but like, I don't like 3D movies at all, because they take me out of my, like, I'm trying to just get sucked into the screen. I just want to disappear. you know.
Yeah, it's like a gimmick.
Yeah. And so I'm not trying to predict stuff, and but if something happened and I'm on book 2 or book 3, and whatever happened comes, somehow they end up back in the situation where that would have mattered, and you don't really bring that up and you're not using that, it kind of takes me out.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, oh well, obviously you killed this dude's friend. He's gonna try to take you out. Why are you like? Why is this not like interacting? Like the author might do something like, well, I don't, this guy definitely doesn't like me. I'm like, no, it's not that he doesn't like you. He would be trying to kill you if this was real. Like, my disbelief has not been suspended anymore. Like,
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's I that really irritates me too. Is when in a previous book something really major happens, and then later on it's like kind of everyone kind of forgets about it. All the characters kind of forget, and they just move on. It's like strange. Yeah, it irritates me too.
so being the busy man that you are, like, what do you do to try to relax? I know I haven't seen you talk too much about recently about your mountain biking. Is that something you're still doing? You just don't talk about it as much. Is that your zen, like trying to get out there and get away from stuff?
It's definitely my zen. I think part of it was because my work schedule changed in the last year or so. So I was still adjusting to that, and then summertime, it's been really tough to kind of because I used to work at night. I used to work graveyard. So now that I work during the day, I'm out kind of in the heat, and then on weekends, it's like, do I really want to get out and go out in the 100-degree heat again? After all week. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but now is the best time to ride. So and my schedule changed a little bit at work, so I'm gonna try and get more. But yeah, that's definitely right. Kind of my therapy. It's my I like to call it my therapy session.
Uh, like I've watched it because you've posted a few videos back, back towards the beginning of your channel of you mountain biking and stuff, and I see people do that, and I'm just like, I would hurt myself so bad, like, going off road and stuff. I mean, I remember as a kid, like, just just hurt going over the handlebars so many times and stuff because I was an idiot, you know.
Oh
But
yeah,
I,
yeah,
you're just like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I've done that.
I mean, I guess the more you do it, the better you get, and you kind of manage your risks and stuff. But
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot of kind of knowing what I'm kind of getting more comfortable, and the bike almost becomes an extension of your body. And when you get to that point where you feel like you have control over it, and you feel like you can manage, you know what you're capable of, and cause sometimes I get off and I walk parts of a trail if it's like, oh, I'm going to kill myself if I try this, so I'll just walk. But yeah, I've definitely hurt myself a few times.
so do
Thankfully,
you
nothing too bad.
so do you have like are there like specific trails for mountain biking, or do you kind of just go off on walking paths and just see where you can go, or
No, I always have kind of a plan because I'm afraid of getting lost somewhere because some of the areas are really big. So I try to they're all established trails for mountain biking. I try not to go on any kind of walking trails because I don't want to ruin them or. Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, yeah. I've had a good few a few a few thorns and a few I've had a few run-ins with the cactus several times. So you know
Oh
it
man.
happens.
So, and I don't know, maybe this is me being stereotypical, but like I'll be on the forums, right? And I'll see and I'll see you post something about like NFL schedule or stuff on like basketball, and I just smile and I'm just like, man, I didn't know that booktubers actually like sports. Like,
No, I'm big into football. We're a big. I mean, every Sunday is like a holiday. We sit and watch football together. And I've just kind of always done that. So it just kind of carried over. But we watch basketball too. I don't really pay attention to the NBA until April, till the playoffs start kind of rolling around, but it's fun to watch that too sometimes, depending on whether or not what teams are involved or whatever. But oh yeah, I'm big into sports.
Yeah, and I mean I understand that, like, it's booktube, so most of the stuff is going to be book related, but it's so weird. Sometimes, like, I was like, does anybody else do sports around here? So I'm always like excited whenever I hear you talk about sports. I'm just like, oh, okay, all right. So you don't have a professional football team out there, right? Because you're out in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
So,
don't have a team here.
so I'm always interested in, because I know people who were born and raised in places that don't have football, and it's also kind of weird here in Ohio because the Cincinnati Bengals weren't around till like 66, 67. So it's like, all the Browns, but we have a ton of older Steelers fans, here. And I'm like, why don't you guys like the Bengals? They're like, well, the Bengals were only around for a couple years when I was a kid. So it was either the Steelers or the Browns, and the Steelers were good when I was a kid. So who do you root for, or how did you pick?
Oh, that's funny. Most people here are either Bronco fans or Cowboy fans. That's kind of the two sides. You're on one side or the other. Um, I don't. Most people are surprised that I'm a Bills fan. I've been a Bills fan since
Okay, all right.
the late '80s. I like that they always seem to come back when they were down. They were really resilient back then, and like Marv Levy and Jim Kelly and all those
Yeah,
players.
Thurman Thomas. Yeah.
I fell in love with that team, and I was a fan through all the 4 losing Super Bowls, and I was a fan through was it 14 years of no playoffs, and I suffered through all those years, and they're finally competitive again. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm right there with you, because I always tell people, like, because the Bengals have been pretty good over the last 10-ish years. They had like 5 straight playoffs, all losses. So, but then we had to slump, and now we tend to got back to the Super Bowl or whatever. But everyone's like, oh, you like the Bengals? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. I was like, calm down. I grew up in the dark ages of the '90s, okay, like, where we had nothing. Oh, ow! Shots fired there.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Not so many dark Sundays anymore. Yeah, because they're, like I said, they're at least competitive now. But there are some rough years. There are some rough years in there. But yeah, it's one of those things that I really enjoy. But
Hey,
the Bengals, I think, if the year that somebody rolled on Carson Palmer's leg, I forget what year it was. That year they were looking really good.
why you gotta hurt me like that, Steve?
Well, it's good that they've been competitive, and they had the years of what's the coach's name? I forget his name. He was a coach there for a long time. Through his whole
Marvin
run,
Lewis, yeah,
Marvin Lewis. They were. I mean, they were competitive. They were. You didn't
yeah,
know they could win any week. So
yeah. He had a winning record, So I mean, that's better than what we had for 20 years before him.
yeah,
Yeah, Chaz he's got it. He's got it. I can't hate on you, Chaz, for the ads and and the food, because I'm addicted to food. I gotta have it, or I don't live. But I eat way more than I should. But yeah,
yeah.
that year with the Steelers and Carson Palmer, and I mean, our offense was legit. I mean, Zada, Johnson, Henry. I mean, we had the whole deal. And even when he blew his knee out on that first pass, he still made like a 60-yard throw and catch. And I'm just like, oh, yeah. Still, a lot of Steelers fans, even to this day, walk around with like T-shirts that says something about, like, whatever the guy's name, Van Alhoffen or whatever, like, is a legend or something like that, where he blew.
Wow.
Like, the Steelers fans here are ruthless. Like, they're like those fans that, like, oh, we have all these championships and we're just gonna shove them in your face. It's like,
Well, they're gonna go through a few bad years now, so they're gonna be rough for a while.
yeah, didn't they play the Bills last week and Bills beat them by like 40 points or something?
Was it 38-3?
3? Yeah, 38-3 or something crazy like that.
That was good. That was fun to watch because the Steelers always seem to beat them. they always seem to kind of find a way to beat them. So it was nice that they it wasn't close.
Oh my, yeah, I mean, Josh Allen is, yeah, he's crazy. Like his arm strength, and then he reminds me of a more athletic Brett Favre. You
Hmm.
know, the way he just gunslings sometimes. The way he throws it, it's almost like he's willing it to happen. He's like, oh, just launches the ball. Like, it's like, he
His
got it. You know, and you got Stefan Diggs over there, right? That's
mm-hmm. Stephon Diggs, and I mean, he just looks like he just like flicks the ball and it goes 60 yards.
yeah. He's
And
like, what is he, like 6'6", like 250 or something like that?
he's a
You
beast.
know,
Yeah, I'm afraid he's going to get hurt though. That's what I'm afraid of. That he's
Lamar Jackson.
taking less chances, but yeah, he's kind of like a Big Ben
Yeah,
with
a
like
faster, much
a
faster
faster like he's like a Cam Newton Big Ben kind of
hybrid.
kind of
Yeah,
reminds me of, yeah. But
yeah.
I just hope he doesn't get hurt.
So who's your now? I mean, you guys, you got a bunch of colleges out there, D1 colleges, but do you root for a different,
Uh,
college, or not,
I
no
pay
college at all?
zero attention to college. I think I have a problem with colleges and the money they make, and it just doesn't make me feel good. It really bothers me. You see these big stadiums and you see all these kids that are playing, and yeah, some of them have scholarships, but these colleges make a ton of money and they have these huge stadiums, and then these kids who are playing football or basketball or whatever, they have this insane student loan debt, and it's like something's not right here. Something's
Yeah,
wrong. And they're doing it based. Some of them, not all of them have scholarships. Some of them pay to go, and then they
walk
put
on. Yeah.
themselves on the field. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. You see these big stadiums. Some of these stadiums are bigger than professional team stadiums.
Oh yeah. There's only well, if you look at like where I'm from, you got all the Big Ten
Mm.
around us, and there's only maybe two or three professional stadiums that are the size of any of the Big Ten stadiums. Like
Wow.
they're all big, and I mean, I can guess why the college stadiums are bigger because I mean students get like cheaper tickets, so they're hoping or expecting that a bunch of their students will show up every game.
Mm.
But I mean, even then, like Ohio State has the most students, I think, of any school. That's like, but that's still only like 40,000, and they're the horseshoe holds over 100,000 people.
Wow. That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and it is crazy though. You will see the other side of the coin because so if you go down to Athens here at OU, which is it's a decent sized school or whatever. It's even older than Ohio State, but its stadium is the size of our soccer stadium in Columbus. It only holds like 35,000. You know, and so it's like you definitely have these have and have nots.
Oh yeah.
College schools. I've always like when that whole Ohio State scandal came up, where the kids were getting tattoos and they were
Hmm.
trading like their little golden pants like tags that they've got. For they weren't paying money. But they were giving away stuff that they earned, and then
Hmm.
they were getting in trouble for it and stuff. I was just like, that makes no sense. Like that's their stuff. Like, you know,
The whole system is just, I don't know. I mean, on one hand I get that if you have these incentives that you can incentivize coming to your school, then only the bigger schools will get the best players. So I get that, but like you said, if they earned these things, then why can't they do what they want with them? I just think the whole thing is kind of just, I don't know, it's just kind of backwards. But I do like now that college kids they'll get paid for someone using their likeness.
yeah,
Because before they would put these kids in the game, in these like huge video games with their likeness, with
yeah,
their name, their weight, their everything, and they wouldn't see a dime from it. And now they're actually able to get paid for it. So that's, at least it's one of the changes that's been good.
yeah. To me, I think the way to do it is through the likeness. Like I'm not big on the college actually paying salaries to the players. But I think that the player should be able to do, as long as it's not illegal, they should be able to do whatever they want to do to make money. Like if they want to start because there was a kid that lost his scholarship because he made a YouTube channel. He was a
Really?
punter. He's like a really good punter, and he's got like 1 million or 2 million followers on YouTube, and because he does crazy, he reacts to stuff, reviews stuff, and he does weird like punting videos and stuff. But yeah, they took his scholarship away from him because he was making money on YouTube.
Wow.
I'm like, it's huge. He's he's like it's like an artist. Like, you can't sell your painting, or something. It's, I think that's the way it should go. It's like, as long as it's not illegal, you should be able to just go. It's like, are you saying these kids can't have a 9-to-5 job? Then, what's the difference?
Yeah.
But the only difference is one has the ability to make a lot of money. You guys only get mad once they make a lot of money.
Yeah. Then and the other thing is why college doesn't really interest me too much is it's always the same schools every year. It's always the same cast of characters. There's never really a school that, I mean, once in a while a school will come out of nowhere and like crack the top 25, but they usually don't last very long.
That's why I loved Boise back in the day.
Yeah.
They came out of nowhere, and then like when they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, that was, even though I'm from Ohio and High State Michigan, those are my teams and stuff. Like that was one of my favorite games of all time, where he did like that Statue of Liberty where he like tucked it behind his back and the guy ran off and scored the winning touchdown and proposed to his girlfriend or whatever.
Oh, that's right.
I was like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. This little team from Idaho comes out and beats Oklahoma. I mean, I guess we all like to root for the underdog.
That's kind of what that's really the only thing I look for in college is that the ranked teams lose. I like seeing the nobody schools beat the ranked teams. That's always makes me a little happy when those underdogs win.
Yeah, I was it like, I want to say it was like 2008 or something like that when Appalachian State beat Michigan. I was just like, Michigan was like ranked like 4th or 5th, and I was just like, well, I feel really bad because I like Michigan, but man, that's got to be so great for App State. Like it could be the highlight of their life.
That was like week 1, right, or week 2 when they beat them.
Yeah, week 2, I think. Yeah,
it was early in the season. Yeah, it was big.
Yeah, that one they blocked the field goal at the end of the game, and it was just like one of those iconic moments. But I think to me that's what I like. That's what I like the most about books. Football. Yeah, I used to be really big into basketball, but I don't know why. I just kind of got away from it. Maybe when I stopped playing it myself. Yeah, I used to play basketball every day. Maybe.
I think another thing is that there's so many games that it's hard to keep up when you have like a busy schedule. So that's one thing that there's a lot of games, so it's hard to always watch every one of them.
Yeah, but to me that's what I like most in books is like, and that's why I love like the Dresden Files. It's because it's like Harry Dresden, especially at the beginning, he's like almost like this nobody, and he just gets beat up all the time, and he finds ways, creative ways, to beat these people that he has no business beating. But I just love when you have a hero that is not a Mary Sue. I mean, that's the worst. When you just like, someone's always good at everything. I'm like, how are you good at everything? You picked up a staff for the first time, and now you're laying waste to everybody. I like characters who just, I don't know. Maybe I'm a sadist. I like my characters to get beat down a little bit and be the underdog.
Yeah, I like that too. And when it happens too, when they pick up a sword and they're a master swordsman in 5 minutes, it's just like, this doesn't. It's not as interesting to me when they don't have a struggle. You don't feel like they earned it. It just doesn't feel earned.
The players seem to switch teams a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a new. Well, that's a trend that really started like 10 years ago. I mean, before that, people would never leave.
Yeah, they'd have one team, but now, yeah, they get traded a lot, and it's hard to keep up when they move around so much.
Well, and I guess that this is I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but and this across sports and different things in general, but so many people are and maybe it's better for the human race, but like people are so much nicer to their rivals than they used to be. Like I miss the good old days where it's like, yeah, we're not shaking hands. Like, especially not before the game. It's like I'm coming, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Patrick Ewing, all these guys are like, they're coming for you. They're like, I'm trying to trying to take your head off. Like you said, like the Bills back in the day with Bruce Smith and all of them. He's like, I'm coming to take your head off. The quarterback, you better be looking my way every play. I don't like you. I don't like what you stand for. Now, especially in the NBA, it's like these guys are making so much money. It's almost like they don't even care. They're just like, high five, we lost. You guys beat us by 30 points. Like, you should be mad. You should be angry that you lost.
You also have the flip side is this new, was it Draymond Green and knocking out his teammate? That was.
Oh my God. Yeah. And yeah, I know you had a lot of discussion on that on your forum too. Oh man, like honestly, and there's so many factors to that. Like not only is he your teammate, right? Secondly, like anybody who kind of knows anything about Draymond Green knows that he's not a great guy. Like he's kicked people in games, and and stuff, and then third, like. He's like 6 inches taller than this guy. This is like one of the shortest guys, smallest guys on the team. And you're like, oh, I'm going to run up and just sucker punch you in the face. It's like.
That's brutal.
Yeah. And especially like it's weird, like, because I'm a huge MMA fan. That's like those in football. I always joke with people. I'm like, if you're not hitting people, I'm not into it, But I felt so bad for him. I was just like, when I seen him get hit like that, especially like because Draymond threw everything he could into that punch, and like I was scared. I'm just because like I know what happens sometimes to MMA fighters in a legit match, and they're trying to protect themselves, and like he just got clocked, and I was just like, you could have shattered his face, whatever, but yeah, and I made a comment about like. If I was the coach, I would just trade him to the worst team. Oh. And like some people jumped in there like, well, he would just retire. I was like, well, then retire. I don't care. Like, I don't want you on my team if you're going to be doing that to your teammates. Like, I don't care how good you are.
I think they tried to just kind of brush it off, and I think it wouldn't have been as big of a deal if the video didn't get released or leaked. But it doesn't sound like much will come out of it anyway. So.
With books, you can set your own schedule and record the ball games if you choose.
And Leslie, that's a great idea. I'm so weird about watching things that like sporting events. Like UFC is the one thing I can watch, or like MMA I can watch after. But anything else, it's just not the same. Watching it live.
Oh man, thank you for saying that, Steve. Thank you. My wife does not understand. Like I'm the same way. Like MMA, as long as I know that it's going to come up. I can just turn off all notifications. Yeah. I'm cool. If I don't know the outcome, I can watch it a couple days later. But football, I have to, like, I can't. There's a weird part of my soul that's like, I know the game's over.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Even if like, it's just like the stream is a few minutes behind or like 10, 15 seconds behind. It's like, this is too far behind. It's already happened. I'm so weird about that stuff. But yeah, I wish I could do that. I wish I could just record it and watch it after. It just my OCD kicks in, I guess.
Oh my gosh! But like, so, like, how do you like make up your TBR, and do you try to stick to it? Like, how close do you stick to your TBR?
It depends. I used to have things planned out pretty far ahead. And there's certain things that I'll plan if I have like if I'm reading with a group, I'll for sure read those. But then I'll try and squeeze in other things, and sometimes my plans change just because something comes up, or I just feel like reading one thing over another at that particular time. So I now I'm trying to give myself more freedom to just make those changes last minute if I want to, and not feel bad about it. So I'm trying to not. I try and have a general plan, but whenever I make a plan, like when I recorded that fall TBR video or whatever, by the time the video was posted, it's like it already changed. So
Yeah. Yeah, you're just like I see some people and they're like the big tower of books and they're like, oh, I'm going through this one and this one and this one and I'm just like are you really trying to stick to all those? Are you like because I know Philip does, what does he call his? Is like he has a specific name for it. It's like over enthusiastic or
oh yeah,
uh, where he's like he knows he's not gonna get to all of these. And I know like at the end of your video, that's where you're like these are the maybe if I have time pile. And I was like, you know, and I'm weird. Like I feel I didn't make promises to anybody really, but I feel bad if I don't get through my TBR. Like if I have one book where I'm like, oh, I got to push this one off or, you know, and stuff. And I don't really have, and that's another weird thing. I don't put a lot of group reads together, but I pressure myself like I'm in a group read sometimes. You know, like the only thing I have is the Dresden, because I do the Dresden videos, and that's 3 books over 2 months.
oh
You know, and they're super quick reads. I think the longest book, like we're not even to the longest book yet, but it's not like compared to some fantasy, it's nothing. I mean, it's maybe 500 pages, something like that. Is his longest book. But yeah, I just that's one thing I was like, well, I'd like to do group reads, but I don't want to get sucked in. But I'm like, Joe, you're already kind of pushing yourself on certain on certain books anyway. And you know, I don't know before how, because you said like your reading really ramped up once you got into Booktube.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. I didn't read nearly as much as I do now, for sure.
you know, were you a binger before you got into Booktube?
No, not at all. Not at all. It was pretty few and far between. But you know, with group reads, it's fun because those are the ones that I pressure myself to finish. But if
Yeah.
I'm just reading a book and I don't get to it, it's like, it's okay.
Yeah. I need to start getting that, you know, mindset, because before Booktube, I was like, if I started a book and I liked it, I'm going through the whole like one after another after another after another. But again, if you're running a Booktube channel, you can't really do that because then your channel just turns into only that, you know.
Yeah.
But like but that's the one thing with so many of these series that I start and I want to keep going with. So I have so many like longer series. Like I'm doing like Cradle and Sandman Slim and then Dresden, you know. So and they like I think Cradle's on book 11, Sandman's finished. I think it's on 12. And I'm only halfway through all those. So it's like, you know, that's going to take up like 5 or 6 months to finish those 2. You know, wow. And then of course Dresden's got like 17, but you know, that's why we're doing, you know, 3 every 2 months to try. And I try to give people time to kind of catch up on those.
Yeah, they're not too chunky.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, I really enjoy group reads because of the discussion after. And whenever I read with other people, I always get a different perspective on the book when we're done. And just hearing what other people's thoughts were always kind of opens my mind to other possibilities or things I missed or things I didn't quite understand. Or just hearing everyone's different perspective has been really enriching for me. But yeah, I can see why some people aren't fans of them.
Yeah, I mean, I like group reads in the fact of like if you're gonna get together, like you do most of your group reads end up with a group video. You know?
I can't do the whole with some groups they read and they like post updates or what they're reading, and I don't enjoy that. I do like at the end when you're done, then talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think, and I brought the, and I kind of brought this up in, in one of my videos. It's like, there's something about, book hype, and like when you're all reading the same book, or a book just got released, and so a lot of people are reading it, especially if you're enjoying the book. It's something more. Like, it feels different. There's an aura around it where you're just like, I know thousands of people are reading this book, or if it's if it's a group read, you're like, especially if you're enjoying it, you're like, I know like 5 or 10 other people are, they're all reading this book. We're all in it together, and like, I wonder if they're liking this. I can't wait to talk to them about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. You get that kind of shared experience with everyone. And even when I don't enjoy a book, like I read Siebel to Burn, the 4th book in The Expanse. I didn't really enjoy it, but I still enjoyed talking about it afterwards. So that's one of those things.
Or it could be like, like a Malazan where you're like, I have no idea what's going on here. Can you guys tell me what this means?
Oh man,
one of us has to know, right?
Those books are tough, yeah. And without people to talk to with those, I still don't really know what's exactly happening. I mean, it's still a little fuzzy, but without the group, I would be totally lost.
Yeah, like, and I know we were talking about like burnout earlier, and that's what really burnt me up. Is I was doing the Dark Tower and then Malazan, and I didn't have my channel at the time, so I was back to back to back, and it was like doing 3 Malazan books one after the other with nothing in between. That's I was like, no, I'm not doing any more big books. Like, I'm done with it. I can't, like you said, there's a sense of accomplishment when you read, you were talking about shorter stories and novellas. It's like busting those out. It feels good. Like, I did something, and
yeah, those chunky books can definitely wear you down if you don't have a break.
And then, with Malazan, that it's so much information, and you really have to pay attention, or like you just get lost. Like, you'll be in it, and you're like 200 pages later, you're like, okay, this guy was from the other city, right? This isn't the same group. Like,
yeah, it's yeah, especially with dense books like that. It's good to have some people to help you kind of understand. I need all the help I can get. So
yeah. Some people on here, enjoyed the Dark Tower. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Now, she didn't give you any grief for bouncing off the Dark Tower, did she?
No, not too much. I did find out how it ended, so that was good. But I did, from what the ending that was spoiled to me, I did think it was a cool ending. So,
I think that's one of the most divisive, endings. Like, people either love it or hate it. I know Mike said that he's like, I didn't read any King for like 5 years or whatever after that, because like,
wow.
He hated it. Yeah. He was like, I cut Stephen King off because I hated the ending so bad, and then he came back to it, and like when he was doing his reread, he's like, well, I kind of understand now. He goes, I still don't like it, but I was on the fence. To me, I just like, other than King spoiling some of his stuff, he can do really good action scenes.
Yeah.
But a lot of times he chooses not to. He chooses, like, when he should. Like, there are scenes like in The Gunslinger and stuff where you're like, well, he didn't need to throw that action scene in, but it was really good. And then, some later ones, you're like, this should have been, like, this is supposed to be a big boss fight or whatever, and you just kind of blew it off. And I'm like, why?
Yeah. His action scenes are top notch. There's a couple, I won't spoil anything, but there's a couple, I think on I don't want to even say early in the series that we're just like, wow, this is great. Like, this is masterful. But yeah, King makes some strange decisions.
Oh my god! Like who is like, because I know King has his fans. What do they call them? Like constant readers or
Mm.
something like that. Who's like auto reads for you?
Oh, auto reads for me. Jeez, I don't know if there's a long list. Um, do you want everybody?
Hey, I got nothing but time.
Let's see. I think like Richard Nell is a auto read for me. Halo Scott is an auto read. Anna Smith Spark is an auto read for me now. Um, H.B. Diaz, Catherine McCarthy, Laurel Hightower, Daniel Barnett. Geez, who else? I'm trying to think. I'm sure I'll think of someone as soon as we're done. But yeah, there's a ton, but who has the time? Is the problem, like how do you find the time to read everything is the hard part. But yeah, there's a few that I'll try and get to as soon as I can, but it's hard sometimes to find the time. There's only so much time in the day to read what we want to read.
Yeah, well, and I tried to stay away from a lot of your spoilers with the Daniel Barnett books, but like it was so interesting hearing you guys talk about it because it's like I the one thing I love more than anything is when people are enthusiastic about what they're reading. Like, it's great when people are, can sound very well educated and break down books and stuff. But I just want to hear somebody who's really excited about what they're reading, you know? And you guys, like, I could just see it, like, when you were like, I'm on the second book, like, or like, I just finished the third book. Like, you guys, like, you're like, it's getting better. I loved that. Like, I would just pop in just to hear you guys talk at the very beginning of each video. Cause eventually, I'm going to get to those, but I loved like just popping in and just seeing your guys' excitement about it. Like that was cool enough for me just to watch that for a little bit.
Those books, there's something special about that series that I really do see it being adapted one day. It's just that series is so good. Daniel has a gift of he can just write. It's insane.
So has he finished?
He's on book 6 now. Book 6 came out, and then I think he's writing the rest. I think he called it like season 1. So now he's starting season 2 of the books. But
Okay.
I know he's going to continue. I think he's writing the next one now. Last I heard.
Nice. Yeah, because I don't know. Did you guys find them after he had already published a bunch, and then you just decided to kind of jump through them, or?
Well, Stacy actually read. She started reading them as they were being released, and then she would tell us about it. But it's hard to get to everything. But when we did get to it, we kind of waited for the 6th book was planned, and then we started reading to where we would finish book 5. Book 6 would be before it was released. We had an advanced copy right before it was released. Yeah, so we kind of timed it to where we would read the first 5, and then we'd get book 6 right after.
Nice. And yeah, and those books, they're pretty short, aren't they?
Yeah, the first 5 are about 100 pages, give or take, and then
So they're like novellas.
Yeah, they're novellas, but book 6 I think is 300 or 400 pages.
Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
Nice. So it's kind of like what's the big one that like a bunch of like Murder Bot or something like that, where there was a bunch of novellas, and then the lady wrote like a full size book. So that's a good idea, and it's kind of like I always like that, and that's what Will White does really great with his Cradle series. Is like it's almost like has this planned out really well because all his books are almost the same size. Like if you see people with the collection and they have them all side by side, like each book is almost exactly the same size. I mean, I try to keep them relatively close, but I can't plan it out to where, some of them are, 25, 30 more pages than the others. But I really like that. I like when, people, it's almost like, he had a good idea. He kind of knows what he's doing. Like, with his books, and just the way you guys talk about him. I think I'm gonna like those because I like the darker. It seems very, it does seem very doom and gloom, but from hearing you guys, it sounds kind of like a Clive Barker ish. I'm starting to go down Clive Barker's realm here, and
Nice. I have Cabal somewhere back there, somewhere on the shelf. I want to get to from Clive Barker. But after we read Hellraiser, he is turned me. I didn't realize that he's. I knew he wrote books and everything, but I didn't think I would like it as much as I did.
Yeah, I just read Mr. Be Gone because I know like his big books were the Hellbound Heart, Mr. Be Gone, Weave World, and then he has a bunch of other ones too.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I always remembered about Mr. Be Gone is people like it's a meta book. It's like burn this book. It's like how it starts off, and everyone But I love it, and his writing style is it's crazy. Have you got to the new Hellraiser yet?
I haven't yet.
I think you'll enjoy it. Like
really?
Yeah, it's almost like what you like about 80s horror, but with the technology of the modern era. Like, it's like, okay, these cool effects that we've seen back in the day that kind of worked, but like now that we're looking at them, they're like, well, they have the technology to make them actually work well and look well. And it's actually a whole different story now. Like it's not, it's almost like they, a whole different person, a whole different set. It's not the exact same, but it was an excellent movie. I could see them doing I could see Hulu doing one of these every year.
That'll be nice. Yeah. I need to watch it. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Oh, so Chaz just got to it.
Nice.
It's more cerebral than the older ones. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, the older one was so contained, and they changed certain things that didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That old movie is kind of it was a rough. Yeah. I mean, it's you have to remember when it was made, but it was kind of had a few laughs during that one.
Yeah, I wish she would just tell us how she really feels.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but what are you up to? What's going on? What's the books? What's the plan? I mean, I know you got a million things going on.
Yeah, well, I'm reading The Hellbound King by Christopher Brennan, and this is a chunker too. Reading that. We're reading The Expanse. We just talked to Steve LeBurn yesterday. We're taking a break from Prince of Nothing. We're taking a 2-week break before we get back into The Thousandfold Thought. We're reading The Dandelion Dynasty. We're starting Age of Madness this month. What else? Jeez. Yeah, now that I say it out loud, it's like, wow.
You're like, man, I am doing a lot.
Yeah, and we're restarting Malazan. We're reading it very slowly, though. We're doing a part at a time, a part of the book at a time. So we're not going to go crazy.
Yeah, because that starts, that you'll have that set for the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think I've pretty much got through my my TBR already for the month. I blew through it, so I'm gonna try and jump on there. And I don't know how many pages it is. Because Malazan's broken up weird. It's broken up like books, but it's it's more or less like sections of the book.
I'm not sure how many pages it is. I have the digital version, and the Kindle, the way that Kindle, goes out. The page count on Kindle is different than print, so I'm not sure how many pages.
Yeah. Are you already into it, or?
No, not yet. That's next up for me is for the 23rd. But I thought it was like 200 or 300 pages is what I remember it being. But for Malazan, that's like 1,000 pages.
So it's a book.
Yeah, it's a book. Yeah, it's a book within the book. Yeah, he's not playing around. But yeah, I think we're trying to just take it very slowly. Don't want to burn out, and because I got a little burned out with that series too. It's just a
Yeah.
lot. It's very very demanding. It's takes a lot out of your brain.
Yeah, I think I might try to jump on that and get into it because I mean it's still the size of a book. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, hope you can make it.
yeah, I will because you have it set for Sunday, right?
Hmm.
I know somebody was asking what time, but like your the form changes time to your time, so
Yeah.
which is really helpful.
Yeah, I don't have to convert the time. Yeah, because I'm really bad with time zones, so it helps out.
All right, Steve. Well, I have loved having you on here. I'm sure we'll be on streams together at some point, doing something. But you are one of the best guys on
Mm.
Booktube, and you help self-publish people as much as any, if not more than any other person on here. And can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the chance to come and just kind of shoot the breeze and talk a bunch of different topics. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, just love knowing a little bit more about what you do here instead of not always books.
Yeah, it's nice to. I mean, not that I don't like talking about books, but it's good to chat about sports and the Bengals and Carson Palmer's knee, and that's all good stuff.
All right, well, go Bengals, go Bills. Maybe we'll meet in the AFC Championship game.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, it'd be nice.
All right, thanks for stopping by, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.